Hello, my name is Austin Belzer, and welcome back to the Austin Bay Media Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be talking with Matthew Simpson to discuss Andor's final season, which sounds a little weird when it's only been 2 seasons, but whatever. Yeah, but this Disney Plus original series tells the story of the formative years of the Rebel Alliance and Cassian Andor's missions for the cause before Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And that little chuckle you heard was Matthew, who's back on the podcast after, I think, a year. We did Spider-Man 2 last year when it had its 20th? Yeah, 20th anniversary. So go check that out. There's both unedited and edited versions. Fully recommend catching up on that. We had a great talk. But yeah, Matt, welcome back, and tell everyone what you've been working on recently.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure as always, and I look forward to this. Now that we're doing it twice in May, in 2024 and 2025, I look forward to this becoming at least an annual tradition where we talk about something.
Yes.
Honestly, hopefully more frequently than that, because I like talking about movies with you and with...
yeah, me too. Maybe we'll do Avengers Doomsday or something like that. I think that's only May 2026 release we have.
Yeah, I'd be down. I mean, I'm definitely going to see that along with everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even dogs in the theater like, I wonder what RDJ is going to do at Doctor Doom.
Yeah, probably. Knowing the way audiences are going these days, I would not be shocked by any of that. But
a Doom Gloom Party or something, or whatever their version of the Chicken Jockey Minecraft screenings.
Yeah. And honestly, my hot take about all this, in the wake of the Minecraft stuff, is that I think that's actually really cool, as long as everyone in the room knows what they're in for, right? Have rowdy screenings, have chicken jockey yelling screenings, have ones where people are going to go nuts, and then also have normal screenings for those of us who just want to sit there quietly and watch the movie, like me. It's my problem is not that the people got loud. My problem is that the people got loud at the expense of everyone else's experience. So as long as everyone's informed, I think it's actually pretty cool when people get that loud.
Yeah, and just don't bring live chickens into the theater. I think that's about the line. That's
probably.
Here's the line, and live chickens are just above that.
I'm curious how that even happened, but that's a different podcast, I think.
Oh, I have a whole... I found the guy on TikTok, and he told it he hid the chicken in his jacket somehow. I don't know.
So it seems borderline animal cruelty at the very least. So maybe don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, but yeah, what have you been up to lately?
Well, I work freelance, as you know, so I've actually been doing a lot of stuff lately. Interestingly, much of my writing lately has been centered on television, which is just what makes this pretty appropriate. So recently, I write mainly for exclaim.ca and thatshelf.com, along with a few others. But you can find reviews of this show, Andor, on actually on my site, Awesome Friday. You can find reviews of the 4 seasons, Netflix original, the 4 seasons, and the latest season of Black Mirror on That Shelf. Murderbot on Exclaim was a recent one I wrote. And then I've been on the Lambcast, which is a group podcast for everyone in the large association of movie blogs. I've been on that all year, basically, but most recently talking about Thunderbolts, and then also Top Secret last week, and then also Final Destination 6 this week will be coming out. Probably, we're recording this on a Monday. I think it comes out on a Tuesday. So yeah, lots of stuff happening. And then this is the moment I'll take to shamelessly plug that I co-founded the Cascadia Film and Television Critics Association 2 years ago now. We are a critics body based in the Pacific Northwest of North America. So we have membership. We have 20 plus members now, which is getting pretty exciting. Spread between British Columbia, Canada, and then Washington and Oregon states in the U.S. And we try to focus on we're just trying to elevate voices who are unrepresented in our local sort of critics associations on the whole, but also to focus on filmmaking and filmmakers in the region, which is pretty exciting because a lot of great work happens in BC and Washington and Oregon in particular. Lots of great genre films, lots of great low budget, but lots of low-key dramas, the kind of films that people complain don't exist anymore. So we're trying to elevate those.
Yeah, believe me, I'm going to talk with Gal Balaban this Friday about just that. There's a scene in the studio about that. So The whole episode is
Nice.
actually dedicated to like, oh yeah, I just don't make movies like this anymore.
Mhm.
But yeah, super excited to see your coverage of future TV shows. In fact, I think you're the only one that regularly posts reviews on Serialized. So like anytime I go to log something on Serialized, yeah, you're the one I usually hear about when you're the one I usually see reviews for. Andor, when you name it, you're talking about it. Last of Us season 2. So it's kind of serendipitous we're talking about a TV show today. Anyways, but yeah, I'm super excited to hear your take on both Andor season 2 and Final Destination Bloodlines. That's the name of it, yeah. I'll have
Yeah,
to check that out.
spoiler alert, I really liked Final Destination Bloodlines like a lot. And if you're a fan of that franchise, that movie gives you everything you want from that franchise. It's a very good version of that franchise.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I really liked it. It's one thing I find is important about those movies is that like if you're familiar with the format of those films, there's always like an inciting incident that's like a premonition that someone sees and then they avoid it and then death comes for them. And this is maybe the second best in the entire franchise inciting incident. It does have its problems. It was clearly meant to be a streaming movie originally, so there's some budgetary limitations, but it's really, really well put together.
You know, I forgot about that. I forgot it was supposed to be a Max, HBO Max, whichever one they're calling it this week, movie.
It was, yeah. Which I actually forgot until I actually podcasted about it on the Lambcast yesterday, like I said, and I'd forgotten that it was meant to be a Max release until we spoke about it. So yeah, but also it's the kind of movie where some janky CG is not a deal breaker for me, like at all. So
yeah,
there's some things that can be done practically, and then there's some things that involve people getting squished or crushed or having rebar coming through their face that just can't be done practically.
and sometimes that jank is like part of the fun, like especially like I'll say in the Saw franchise when it has particularly bad effects. Those are my favorite ones.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's also fun because like the main location of the inciting incident in this one is this like restaurant in the sky, like at the top of a tower. You've probably seen it in the trailer if you watch the trailer. In a building that clearly doesn't exist. Like, and that's one of the bigger sort of CGI things. It's like a little bit too clean, if you know what I mean. Like there's no budget for texture and detail. But the Final Destination franchise is a very Vancouver, BC, Canada franchise. So like the base of that building is just our planetarium. It's always fun for me watching those films because it's like a tour of Vancouver, basically. It's pretty great.
You know, you're talking about this and it makes me realize they did the same thing in Drop this year. And like until I watched the credits, I'm like, oh, they filmed this in like Chicago or something. And then you watch the credits and it's like filmed in Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Vancouver stands in for a lot of places. Vancouver often doesn't play Vancouver. If you're a movie fan and you're from Vancouver, a lot of the time you find yourself going, oh, I recognize that building. Oh, I know that street. Yeah. Even The Last of Us, which is airing right now, is like Vancouver and also Nanaimo, British Columbia. And there's some pretty recognizable landmarks.
Yeah, and Thunderbolts too, I think. Yeah. I think I saw it at the end of the credits, so that just saw that. But well, I think I could do a whole podcast on film locations. I could probably do a whole like podcast series, I think.
I mean, you definitely could. Just like pick a spot and talk about every movie that was filmed there.
Just fly to Utah for a month and be like, hey, Utah Film Commission, we're gonna record 90 podcasts.
Or just go to LA and like, there's that tunnel in California. I can't remember what it's called, but the one that it's in The Last Starfighter, it's in Back to the Future. It's like this one tunnel that every time there needs to be like a chase through a tunnel, that's the one they use.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, if I go back out to LA sometime soon, I'll definitely record a on location podcast there. But before we get too out of the weeds, and before we get into our main discussion of Andor season 2, is there anything you've seen recently that you want to recommend?
I mean, I said this to someone else yesterday, but my main thing for this year so far is that it's been a pretty good year for movies, but it has been an incredible year for television. So my recommendation is to watch a bunch of television, basically. Like The Pitt is probably the best medical drama since ER, probably, for being honest. Andor is great. The Last of Us season 2 has been incredible. The studio, which ends this week, which I've seen the finale for already, is hilarious. Murderbot coming up is going to be exactly like some people's exact cup of tea. Is going to be Murderbot. It's like an easy breezy, funny sci-fi, occasionally gory show. I really enjoyed the 4 seasons on Netflix, which is a bit breezy, but like in a good way. Like hangout movies are fun, and it's a hangout TV show based on a hangout movie. And, so my recommendation is just that like look to TV for the first half of 2025 because it has been an incredible 2025 so far.
Yeah, it like you said, the Pitt's great. I would watch it the second it popped up on Max. It like right then and there. Kind of same with Andor, but then they started doing, as I'm sure we'll talk about, 3 episode drops, and I'm like, I can't watch 3 hours in one night. I'll do it the next morning. But
so I had the whole season in advance for Andor season 2. So I watched all of it in 2 nights. So I had a weekend. So I guess it was 3 nights. I watched the first 2. I watched the first one, and then the second one, and then the third and fourth arcs together. So over 3 nights.
Ooh, I think that'd probably be the ultimate way to watch it. I think my recommendation would be I'm going to cheat because I'm the host. I would recommend before next week's episode of The Last of Us Season 2, go out and play or replay The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Because I have a feeling next week is going to be when you're going to want that info. Otherwise, you're going to be confused, I think, for the next year. Coloring some of the lines that aren't necessarily show. And I'm avoiding huge spoilers here, of course, because I played the game last year when the remaster came out on PS5. So I'd recommend that if you're into video games, play that so you're kind of prepared for season 3 next year, I think. I don't know if they're filming that. But anyways.
I know it's been renewed for season 3 because season 2, like I didn't actually realize until last night because I very purposefully have not been not watching ahead or not looking up anything, and I never played The Last of Us Part 2. Although I did but I didn't realize until like this weekend that next week is the finale of the season. Like it's a short season, which I'm not a huge fan of. But
you're in the same boat with a lot of people. A lot of people like watched that on the season finale of The Last of Us trailer that was attached to this week's episode, and they were like, "Wait, what?"
And I imagine though that like we're gonna get a lot more Caitlin Dever in season 3, which I'm very much looking forward to because I think she's been great so far.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot more. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I know. Like again, I didn't play the game, but I know enough to know that she's effectively the co-protagonist, like the player, one of the 2-player characters of the second game. So I imagine season 3 will basically be her story, which I'm very much looking forward to because I know it has some twists and turns. Caitlin Dever is one of my favorite young actors, so I'm very much looking forward to that. I don't know when it's coming out. It's not soon enough.
Yeah.
Whenever it is.
I personally hope they wait 2 years, but that's just personal preference.
No, they should just do it all now.
Okay. Well,
I want shows to be 22 episodes again. In fact, I'm old enough to want shows to be 26 episodes again. So it's, prestige TV is great, but also I want more.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I'd really hope for a 26 episode season, but then I think for this show specifically, I don't know if that would work. But I also realize that the game is a lot larger than they're doing in season 2.
Yeah.
I think the game, it took me 40 or 50 hours to play part 2.
Wow.
Whereas part 1 was like 10 hours max. And that was like if you're really stretching things out.
Well, yeah, there's two stories, right? So that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll leave it at that before I start spoiling stuff for season 3. Right, but
I might have to actually pick it up and play it at this point because everyone tells me it's great, and I did like the first one, so I will have to watch the second one.
Yeah, and I think they have Naughty Dog released a bundle of the PS5 versions just a few weeks back, so
Yeah, that's probably what I'll do.
it's easier to do that. Yeah. Anyway, I actually need to go back and play part 1. Anyways, I'll do that later. But
We're pretty. This is very much on topic with Andor, by the way.
Yeah. And then second recommendation would be actually relates to your Lambcast. I watched Final Destination for the first time this past week.
Nice. Nice.
And I was
like the first one or like the franchise?
Yeah, the first one. I think I watched it back to back with something else. I forget what the other one was. I think I watched Andor, then Rogue One, and then I watched Final Destination. I think that's how it went.
That's a hell of a triple feature.
Yeah, it was a lot of total whiplash there.
Yeah,
but I'm just recommending it because I think that with Bloodlines coming out this past weekend, I think now is probably the best time to catch up. So that you can watch. I think all the movies are on Max or HBO Max, whatever we're calling it. Are we calling it HBO Max now, or again?
I think it's officially. So it doesn't actually really affect me because I live in Canada and we don't get it up here.
Okay.
But I believe it's HBO Max again.
Okay.
A friend of mine who's in the States told me yesterday that like the other 5 films are basically all trending on Max right now.
Yeah, like if you go to the Letterboxd page, like popular this week, all 5 of them are in like the top 20.
Yeah, and rightly so. It's a very fun. It's a very smart, dumb franchise. Or is it a dumb, smart franchise? It's one of those two things. But it's also there. I mean, the only one I don't like is 4, and the rest of them are all at least fun. So they're definitely worth checking out. I watched all of them for a podcast about a month ago, all 5 of the original ones, like back to back to back, and I had a great time doing it. And then I got to podcast with the same people about the 6th one this weekend. So it was it's been a fun revisit for sure.
Yeah, so that's my recommendation, and purely because of how insane it is, the first one, like it's interesting looking at it with 2025 vision, because I had to look up when the movie came out, because I guess spoilers for a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, the inciting incident is a plane blowing up in the year 2000.
Yep.
And I'm like, boy, if they had released that a year later, that would be a potentially sketchy situation.
Yep. And honestly, like my recommendation to you is if you liked the first one, keep going.
Yeah, I will.
The second one is my favorite one. And also is responsible for like collective millennial trauma and why so many people in my age group cannot drive behind a logging truck. It's
yeah, and they are doing marketing for Bloodlines with like log trucks in LA for that.
And rightly so, because they scare everyone in my age group. It's the second one.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a insane claim right here, but it reminds me of the zany Saw entries, like where it just completely abandoned all logic and was just like, "Hey, just sit with us here."
Oh yeah, the best of these movies, the best of the Final Destination movies are effectively live action R-rated Looney Tunes. It's great.
Yeah, because what was it? One of the kills in 1 is like, I guess spoiler for Final Destination, but like tub what? No, toilet water that's somehow blue. I don't know what's in their pipes that's blue, but
visibility.
Oh, visibility. the visibility water. They got Clorox in their pipes.
Exactly.
And it just comes out of the toilet just like a sneaky Freddy Krueger type thing, and makes him trip and fall and groats his neck, and then sneaks somehow back into the place where it was dripping.
Yeah, interestingly, one is the like in some ways because of that scene the most overtly supernatural one. A lot of the time it's just more like breezes and vague setups for Rube Goldberg machines that kill people. But you'll see what I mean when you start watching the rest of them. Okay. And bonus for anyone who's listening who hasn't seen them, the third one has a very young Mary Elizabeth Winstead in it, and she's great.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll make sure to check those out. I think I'm gonna do that, and then maybe catch up with it when it comes to. I don't know if I'll be able to catch it in theaters because it'll be probably pushed out by Mission Impossible or Lilo and Stitch. If I had to
Probably.
guess.
I managed to see this one in IMAX, and I regret nothing.
Okay, that points me to something. I saw both Thunderbolts and Sinners in Dolby Atmos.
Mhm.
Not Dolby Cinema. It was just advertised as Dolby Atmos. I could not tell the difference to save my life. Like, I thankfully the tickets were cheap, but I'm like, yeah, I think I would have just rather seen this digitally or 2D digital. Because
Well, the Atmos is only about the sound, right? So the
Yeah.
picture quality is not going to change.
I
Luckily,
was just talking about like the sound quality. There's like typical tells that something is mixed in Atmos. None of that was present in either.
oh, it definitely was for me. So I didn't see it in IMAX like a silly person, but we did see it in an Atmos cinema, and I could definitely tell, especially in the concert scenes, the Lie to Me or whatever it's called, the Miles Catton singing, and also the Pale Pale Moon. You could definitely tell that it was Atmos mixed for me. So that could also just be your cinema, which is definitely a thing. Here, at least going to this movies here is a little bit expensive now, but at least things stack. So if you see an IMAX movie, you're guaranteed to also have Atmos and the assigned seating and all the other stuff. So I always try to go for the more expensive one just to make sure I get all the others. And also IMAX is cool. So even for Final Destination, where it does aspect ratio shifting, the only problem with that is you can definitely tell a kill is coming because it shifts aspect ratios just as the scene starts, but it also gets you amped up for what's about to happen. So
I may need to see Final Destination Bloodlines in IMAX because that has me picturing a future where in the next Saw movie the ratio expands as Jigsaw says, like, would you like to play a game?
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I'd be in on that. Dude, for sure.
I would ticket already bought if they do that for the next Saw movie. That'd be insane. I don't need to see anything else. Just that's the trailer. I'm in. I'm part of the problem.
I'd be there.
But yeah, so yeah, I recommend Last of Us Part 2 Remastered on PS5. I think you can get on PC too. And then Final Destination now streaming on HBO Max. Yes. But now let's talk about what we were actually here to talk about, Andor Season 2. So first, let's get a feeler out. How'd you feel about the first season of Andor and, Cassian himself, Star Wars in general, whichever basket you want to pick from?
I will say that as a lifelong Star Wars fan who is old enough to have grown up with the original trilogy, I think Andor was and continues to be among the best that Star Wars can be. Probably, certainly the best project of the sort of modern era, but I think also one of the best entries in the entire franchise, if not the best entry in the entire franchise. So it's hard to say that it's the best given the many different flavors of the franchise, but it's certainly the most adult, the most nuanced, the most thoughtfully produced in terms of its storytelling and its intent in storytelling in the franchise. I would say, set with maybe only The Last Jedi being like a close second in terms of specific intent, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I would agree with you, especially season 2 is some of my favorite Star Wars out there because I think it recognizes something critical that, hey, the kids who grew up on the prequel trilogy have now grown up, or just in general, the people who grew up with Star Wars have now grown up and full adults. Let's make a Star Wars adult story. And yeah, I love Solo. I will die on that hill. I love Solo, as bad as it clearly is. I loved how goofy it was, which is kind of what you want for a Han Solo story. And
for sure, yeah.
And the new Jedi games are really good, but those are kind of its own type of thing, quite literally, because there's not really any connection to the larger Star Wars universe, since Cal's kind of on his own in this universe. He hasn't really met anyone except for some cameos in Jedi Survivor. And other than that, I love Attack of the Clones, as corny as it is. I mean, sand is just coarse, rough. It gets everywhere.
It does get everywhere. That's true.
It does get everywhere. I mean, I found that out quick when I was like walking on Santa Monica Beach once. I was like, okay, I cannot wear flip flops in this. I see why people wear Birkenstocks. But yeah, well, I just watched episode 3 last month, or last month? No, earlier this month. I think is that when it came out.
You went in cinemas? Did you go?
Yeah, in cinemas.
Yeah, I think that was beginning of May.
Yeah, okay.
I did not get to go. I think it was for Star Wars Day, basically, to go. But I'm glad that everyone... It's no secret, if you followed my work, that I'm not a huge fan of the prequels, but I'm really glad that they have found their audience. Like, they are... Like, they're not bad films. They're just not... Well, actually, it's a whole other podcast, but I really don't like Attack of the Clones, actually. It's my least favorite Star Wars. But, I'm glad that they've found their audience. Like, it's okay for things to not be for me.
Yeah. And... I will be one of the outspoken ones that says that the re-release really didn't make me like Revenge of the Sith much more, especially with the bad projection quality my theater had. It was awful. It looked like somebody threw soda on the projector screen.
Yes.
But that's a completely different topic for another time. I think the only Star Wars stuff I haven't watched, because I've watched Rebels, love that. I've watched Mando, which is first season was good, later seasons not so good. It's quickly. I just feel like it's quickly turning into an Easter egg fest. Like, remember this, remember this, remember this, remember this.
It's another podcast, but I have my hot take about Mandalorian is that it should have been an anthology show with 3-episode arcs, like Clone Wars was. It should have just been called Mandalorians.
I would have loved that, because that feels more in line with what I would have wanted, but. Other than that, I really don't think I've had a bad Star Wars experience. Now, that said, I haven't finished Skeleton Crew yet, and probably will not.
I loved Skeleton Crew. Like, that 80s Amblin kids on an adventure is exactly my speed. I love that show a lot.
Maybe I need to finish that. But I definitely was just like, I don't know why, but I was thinking the whole time, this would have been better with the broom kid from Last Jedi. Like, if it was a continuation of that.
No, I don't think... I get where you're coming from. I just don't think everything needs to be connected like that. I think it's better that it's not, actually. I think every time we make a connection like that in Star Wars, it makes this vast universe feel smaller in a way that I appreciate that it's disconnected. Mostly disconnected.
Yeah. Maybe eventually we'll get a Star Wars series where we'll talking about the Gungans and their role in the universe.
Maybe.
I love Andor's first season. I think it had a few rough spots where it was still trying to find its footing and like, hey, yeah, this is explaining kind of what happens between episode 3 and Rogue One to the rebellion. But it was kind of more like a heist thing, especially in the Aldhani stuff. But I think it found its footing after that, if that makes sense. I think the Aldhani episode was kind of like, hey, stick with this for a second. We're trying something new. And then really took off from there.
Yeah, I liked the whole of season 1. It's interesting because the intent of season 1 to me is really clearly, how did Cassian Andor become a full-blooded rebel, like a full-blown rebel? And then season 2 is, the rebellion in action, building towards being an actual army, building towards being an actual movement with him as part of it. So I liked it all. Like the first season being all basically character development. I mean, there's plot, but it being all basically character development for him specifically made the second season better, I think, because a lot of the questions we might have had about motivations or would already have been answered by season 1. So I think it's a pretty great way to structure. I know if you know you're only going to have two seasons of 12 episodes each, I think making the first one all answers to questions you're going to have in the second one, so you can just tell the story in the second one, is a great way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. I don't think I really thought of it like that. I think I kind of thought of it as like, hey, this is something new for Star Wars. Let's try to satisfy both audiences that are coming from Rogue One, or two just want like a different kind of Star Wars show.
Yeah. I mean, the first season, it's interesting how the first season, like, we're going to talk about how it flows into Rogue One later, but
Yeah.
the first season to me is basically like, this is Cassian Andor going from being a more freelance Han Solo type character to being a rebel, and it literally caps off with him saying like, kill me or take me in. Right. And then I really appreciate that about it. So it does make, because he's never not part of it. He's just also not, he's only ever in it reluctantly at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So I like that it explored that part of the character and took the time to develop him into someone who would be just in the rebellion.
Yeah. And then I guess that kind of leads me to what we're going to talk about next. Kind of the season 2. As I'm sure everyone watching this, I would think, knows by now, season 2 covers 4 years, leading directly into Rogue One, with each 3 of the episodes being like, I think, roughly a year, I believe.
I don't think they're even that long, honestly. I think that they're a couple of days or a couple of weeks each, and each section of 3 episodes is like, so it's a fairly short amount of time. It's enough time for like whatever story needs to be told. And then I think a thing I keep running into online is people saying that like, how can, 9 or 10, 11, 12 be a year before Rogue One? But I think what we're missing is that it's not set a year before. Each one is set. We actually don't know when each one is set specifically, other than they are in the year for BBY and in the year through, not 3 years before, 4 years before. That makes sense, right? Like they're not necessarily even separated by a proper calendar year. They're just happen to be. It's like saying, a thing happened in 2024 and a thing happened in 2023, but those could be in December and January, right? It's that's the way to look at the timeline of field and have it make better sense.
So I guess my question is, and by the way, great way to put it, rephrase it. My brain's still just fried even after like three coffees. My question is like, how did you feel about this extended timeline, and the pacing of the season overall?
Oh, loved it. It really allowed for a lot of really thoughtful development that I don't think could have happened in a shorter time. Like it wouldn't. One of the beautiful things about season 2, especially when you think about the Gorman, the planet Gorman, is as you see, when you first see it, it's a free society, and then over the, with people going about their business, living their lives, and then as the Empire gets its hooks in deeper through the season, just in the background, things are getting worse, more constrictive, more authoritarian. And the same with even on Coruscant. You go from Mon Mothma and the other senators coming and going freely to, in the next arc, there's security detectors. In the next arc, there's stormtroopers around. Like all of that, development, which is all great, would have felt very rushed on a shorter timeline. And just having it present and in the background over a longer timeline, I think really makes it hit home harder. Just the way that it's that frog in water type situation, right? Like they're slowly bringing up the boil. They're not highlighting it. It's just happening and you're getting used to it in the background. I thought it was brilliantly presented.
Yeah, and I thought it was a good way to get around, like, how did Cassian get out of this situation? It's easily answered of like, okay, the next arc's a year later. You don't need, it doesn't matter how Cassian got out of there. It just matters what is the state of the galaxy, because I think in large part, season 2 is kind of less directly about Andor himself and more about the Rebel Alliance as a whole.
Oh yeah, I would say that's true as well. He's clearly still the protagonist, but it is very much like about the final formation of the rebellion, of the coalescence of the rebellion into a solidified movement. It actually makes Rebels really interesting. I kind of want to go back and watch some Rebels episodes now, because like there's one that's it came out first, but there's one that's basically a direct sequel to one of the arcs in Andor, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool they wrote around that.
They do it twice, I think. that I noticed at least. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in spoilers, but I don't want to spoil that. So before we even get to talking about the characters. But yeah, there's two instances where I was like, oh, this is directly leading into Rebels. Like, neck and neck. Like, oh, this happens, and then I know in Rebels this happens.
And even Rebels, like, that show ran for a couple of seasons, and at the beginning they're one cell in a pretty disparate array of Rebel cells, and as they get toward the end, you can watch them, the rebellion itself becoming more and more coalesced into a cohesive unit. And I really love that Andor does.
Especially with that first arc, was really a great way to kind of show the progression of the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah, and also just to highlight, not to spoil it early, but to highlight that like infighting is only going to hurt the cause.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a spectacularly written show.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would have liked is a bit more filling in between the lines. There's certain things that I won't go into from the first season that are just never picked up ever again, and I'm just like, okay. And even things in season 2 where they're like, okay, we'll come back to this later, and then it's just like, oh yeah, we're not going to address that at all. And it's just like, okay, well, I don't care really, but just some. Especially in the series finale, there were moments where I'm like, oh, so we're just going to drop that whole thread? Okay, all right, whatever.
Yeah, I'll be curious when we get into a spoilery section to hear which parts of that you mean, because I
will.
Didn't really care. So
okay.
It still worked for me. It felt, because of the time jumps, it actually made it. I was like, oh, okay, I guess they resolved that at another point. It's fine. But I didn't even really notice many of this. I've seen other people saying that, and I'm like, I don't get what you guys are even talking about. Like, that's fine.
I think it comes from my completionist sort of view. Is like, I would really just like closure right there. And there was a moment where it could have been included, and I'm just like, come on, just like, at the end of the day, does it really matter? No. Do I care about it? Yeah, still, yeah.
For me, I feel like there's definitely threads that are probably not picked up, but that the resolution for the character and like the emotional and important arc for the character is always resolved, and that's the more important part of the show. So when there's a plot thread left, it doesn't really matter to me as long as the character part of it is resolved, and it always is. So.
Right, and then I think this will be my last thing about the time jumps, because I'm sure if somebody's discussed it to death, probably like a 4 or 5 hour podcast where they're just ranting for 4 or 5 hours. But without going into specific plot details, spoilers and stuff like that, did you feel like the time jumps flowed smoothly together?
Oh, yeah. For all the reasons I already said. Like, I feel like it was actually pretty important to the way the season was structured and the intent of the season. I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, and same here. I'll just reiterate that I think the end of each arc felt like, okay, this is the extraction point now. And now that he's being extracted onto the next arc.
Yeah.
And then kind of going into the man, the myth, the legend, Cassian himself. How did you find Ian's transformation this season?
I thought it was good. I thought that Diego Luna was excellent at portraying the sort of progression of the character from, he starts out the season fully bought in. He's a bit of a hardliner. I really loved in the second arc, there's a moment where he doesn't want to proceed.
Yeah.
I believe the line is like, they started late and now they're rushing. Like, I feel like his sort of idealism clashing with Luthen's cynicism in those moments were pretty great. And especially in the last one, it's hard to talk about without spoiling, but like, he has reason to be a little more cynical in the last 3 episodes. And so seeing him still flying off to go start the plot of Rogue One was pretty great. And it's where, again, we're going to talk about Rogue One in a bit, I'm sure, but like the way it all flows into Rogue One makes a lot of stuff about Rogue One better. A few things about it not better, but most things about Rogue One better. And that's a film that I'm pretty mixed on overall. But yeah, I thought it was great. is the short version of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think season 2 does a better job at making Cassian's struggle feel human. Like it feels like somebody you could talk to.
Yeah, he's less selfish as well, less self-centered in season 2, which is good.
You're spending at least I'll say from my point of view, point of view of the Jedi, or jokes aside, I felt like he was somebody who I was less angry at for the reasons he didn't want to do something. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, on this mission because X, Y, and Z. I've clearly seen the reasons for and against.
Yeah.
Whereas I think season 1 was more like, I'm just a bounty hunter.
Yeah, like I say, season 1 is very much getting him into the fight, and season 2 is him in the fight. His Luthen's very pragmatic and cynical, and especially in the first half, Andor is still, as much as he can be, a bit idealistic, and I love that clash. And I love his sort of dip into cynicism and then rise out of it toward the end as well. I thought it was great.
Yeah. And then I'm slowly realizing we can't talk about Andor much more without spoiling stuff. So I guess before we get into spoilers, how would you rate Andor season 2, especially in regards to how it concluded the series and its place within the Star Wars saga?
Oh, again, among the best of the franchise. It's among the best of the year, like in terms of just a standalone television show. It's among the best in the year. I love that it's super well produced, acted, written. It looks great, sounds great. It's very overtly political. It's very overtly relates to the state of the world, and perhaps very specifically. And I love that I love that it's not shying away from having this very specific pointed message about authoritarianism and fascism, and the way those things can worm their way into your life. And I think it's, again, among the best, among the best in the franchise. Yeah,
it really puts an exclamation point on, like, in case you didn't understand that the empires are who they're based on. Here's just like it in highlighted, underlined, bolded, like.
Oh yeah,
I think,
and there's like a bunch of people in like right-wing parts of the world who are watching this show and doing that, basically doing a live action version of that. Like, is this play about us?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that about it. I love that, there's always the nerds online who complain about, there shouldn't be politics in Star Wars, as if it hasn't always been political. I really love that this one is very, very overtly political and has something very important and pointed.
I think if I had to rate it, I'd give it a 4 or 4.5, only because I think some of the story does tend to lose weight at some points. Mainly because that might be because of the model, I think, in which this was released. I would have loved to have seen. I mean, I know that each of the arcs, the 3-episode arcs, are meant to be viewed as a whole, but I think viewing them all like 3 episodes a week for about a month, kind of a little bit. I know why Disney Plus and Tony Gilroy did it, but I really would have liked to have had a longer release schedule so I could digest each and every episode.
Yeah, I'm on the other side of that. I think that releasing them 3 at a time so you could watch an entire arc at once if you wanted really heightened the impact. And yeah, I mean, at its worst, that means you're watching 3 hours of they're not all an hour long though. And it's basically like watching a movie a week for a month. And I respect I live in a dual income, no kids household, so I'm able to do that. I get it. But if you can do it that way, I think it's extremely rewarding.
Yeah, like I said, I think I understand. I know why they did it. It's just like, well, once you get to the 3rd episode, you're like, okay, my brain is fried. Especially if you're watching other movies that week and the wires start to get crossed.
Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. Either way, like, there's no bad way to watch this show though. So would be my takeaway here.
But with that, did you give a rating?
So I rated it as an overall as a 4 out of 5. I'm a pretty hard rater, and I also don't do half stars because I'm stubborn. So it's a 4, but that's because, like, all of the episodes are either 4 or 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
And in the case of a 4 and a, like I always round down. So if it was a 4.5, that's a high 4 in my opinion. And I know that sets me apart from a lot of people, but that's how it works for me.
Yeah, and I don't usually do 5.5 stars either, just out of necessity, because there is no half star emoji. So like if I'm rating something, I'm like, I don't want to type in 0.5.
Yeah,
that just looks bad.
That's the kind of pedantry I can get behind. So yeah.
Yeah, so
I just don't do half stars because I find it keeps me more honest about things. I'm very inclined to give stuff 3.5 or 4.5. And then at one point I did do that, and I looked at my like review curve and realized that I was just doing that over and over again. And once I switched to doing just a hard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my reviews felt more honest, so that's why I stick to it.
yeah, that's the non-superficial reason too, is it forces you to think a little bit more critically. Like, okay, is it only 0.5% better, or what would that be, 10% better if you're on a 5-star rating?
Also, just that, like, I don't know, this is the sort of math nerd in me, and to be clear, I don't use this to like guide my reviews, but I definitely feel better about my overall reviews and like my overall taste when I recognize that like it's still pretty highly rated, but the curve of my of the bar chart of my reviews is a nice bell curve. Still weighted pretty high. It takes a lot for me to like dislike a film to give it a 1, for example. But and like 3 is now the most used number. Because honestly, most things are 3. That's normal. When you watch as many movies as we do as well, like it's pretty normal that lots of things are going to be fine. And I think that I'm just saying the same thing over and over again here. Yeah, it keeps me honest and keeps me honest. Not even so much, with the people who do read my work, but also with just myself, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. But yeah, okay. We're about to move into our spoiler-filled discussion of Andor Season 2. So this is your official warning for anyone watching or listening who hasn't finished the season yet and wants to remain spoiler-free. Pause here, come back after you've seen it all. Although I hope you can stay if you don't mind. But consider yourself warned. We're going to talk about spoilers. So now that people have been warned, what was the highlight for you in Season 2 of Andor?
The whole third. So that includes basically all of the buildup, what we've been seeing happen on Gorman, culminating in the Gorman massacre. That episode was super powerful. And then ending on Mon Mothma's speech to the Senate and her escape to join the rebellion and lead it properly and more overtly and directly. That whole arc is one of my favorite Star Wars things now. Like if that was a movie, that would be among the best movies. So yeah, that whole one as a sort of backup to that. I do like where everyone ends up and why they end up there. I think that people get their just desserts, people get their rewards, people get their just desserts, very generally speaking, in very organic ways that fit with the existing narrative. And I cannot speak more highly about how well written this show is.
Yeah, it's absurd, isn't it? It's like,
I say this as someone who generally has liked the Star Wars output from Disney Plus in the past few years, but it is a little bit frustrating when you look back at some of the projects and go, they could have all been this well written. like I think that Skeleton Crew is great. I actually liked The Acolyte, but like I've liked a lot, but like they could have all been this good, man. Like they could have all been within their like specific flavors of Star Wars. They could have all been this good.
Like Ahsoka could have been this good. Can you imagine like an Ahsoka on this level? Like I hope Ahsoka Season 2 is this good or better.
I would settle for this good. Like settle for.
Yeah.
I don't think Ahsoka was terrible. I think that it fits into the general Disney Plus Star Wars TV show trap of being a really strong start and a really sort of middling finish. But yeah, I mean, they all could have been this good. They all could have been this good. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I think that would be the highlight, would be that third arc. Yeah, it's just so full of great moments. Like, I remember when I first saw the spiders on Syril's like little nook, I guess you would call it. I don't know if they have nooks in the Star Wars universe or whatever they call them.
They do.
But like the shelving unit, and that kind of gives you a clue later of like, oh, he's been talking to these people for a while, without even saying anything. You just see that spider, and you're like, oh, the spider Krennic was talking about. And why is Syril here? Like automatically get your brain fired up asking questions.
Yeah, the same kind of background progression as like I was talking about before about the like Imperial buildup. All that background stuff is so smartly handled, so intelligently handled. It's wonderful to watch. I bet that I haven't watched it again yet, but I bet this show will reward multiple rewatches for that kind of stuff.
I'm sure. And actually, that made me want to ask a question. Because there was something that confused me, and I didn't figure it out until I watched a video about it. So thank you, Screen Crush, for this. Did you understand that pistol was Melchi's pistol? That was also from like season 1, the Aldani heist, and who was Syril's old pistol from Morlana 1?
Oh, you mean the one that they did like the long lingering shot of?
Yeah.
At the end of whatever arc it was, when they're like, who knows who has some experience, whose pistol is this? And he's like, that's mine. Yeah, I did recognize it. Yes. Okay. Also, if you look closely, there's Jyn Erso's pistols on that table too, the one she steals at the beginning of Rogue One.
Okay, because I was like, in the moment, I'm like, why are they spending so much on this stupid pistol? Like, what is wrong?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more fan servicey moments in the whole thing.
Well, that, and I guess this is a segue into my next question. The integrations with Rogue One, you've got Orson Krennic in here, you've got K2SO. It has a little bit of fan servicey moments in that. So I guess how did you feel about those moments where it's directly tying into, hey, this is a thing from Rogue One?
So this is going to be a bigger answer looking at our notes for the show than just this one question. But I thought that most of the things it did to integrate with Rogue One make Rogue One better, and a couple of things make it worse. So things that it makes better would include using Krennic but not having him be like, he only shows up like 4 times in the whole series, and I think having him be present but not like a focus character is a super smart move, because it allows the show to continue to focus on Dedra Meero and also Partagaz as the sort of like those tiers of power within the Empire. Like he's like Dedra Meero is like has power over our main characters, and then Partagaz over her, and then Krennic over him, and then the Emperor over Krennic, right? Or I guess Moff Tarkin over him. And I think that having Krennic be around as the sort of like Moff Tarkin, Darth Vader, Emperor kind of like ultimate power is super smart in a way where not focusing on him allowed the show to still flourish with its own characters. I think some of those fan servicey moments are fine. I think they're there if you see them. They're not like, there's only that one that really beats you over the head with it. And it's fine. I think bringing back K2SO only at the end also makes total sense, and would have probably been too much if he was there for any more, but gives enough time and context from the end of that 3rd arc and then through the 4th and into Rogue One for their relationship to make perfect sense in Rogue One. And then like at the beginning of Rogue One, there's a scene where Cassian is told about Galen Erso, and he has this reaction, which the first time we saw it, a decade ago or whatever it was, we were like, oh, like he's heard that name before. Like he must be an infamous person. And now it's like, oh, his intel has just been confirmed. Like the intel we just heard at the end of Andor has been confirmed at the beginning of Rogue One. The main thing that this show does that makes part of Rogue One worse is that it proves they should not have digitally puppeteered Peter Cushing as Moff Tarkin. They should have just recast him with the guy who played him in the movie, who looks a lot like Peter Cushing anyway. I think that the recasting of Bail Organa in the show is great. And I know that's not everyone's opinion, but I'm so glad they just chose another prominent Hispanic actor to play the character, to give us a slightly different take on him, but it's still very clearly Bail Organa. And having it be so successful in Andor makes it all the more frustrating that they didn't just do that in Rogue One for me.
Yeah. So Yeah, a few notes about that. Like I actually didn't necessarily like the integrations with Rogue One. I know obviously it's got to tie into Rogue One because obviously this is Andor, a Star Wars story, not Rebels, a Star Wars story. But I think it could have this is where I start to nitpick things. So keep that in mind, everyone. When I talk about this. I think the K2SO moment is a little on the nose, where it's like, hey, this random battle droid that you found, let's load it into my ship as we're in like a war zone on Gorman. I'm like, okay, I don't know about this. That seems a little forced, but I get why it has to happen because obviously K2SO is in Rogue One, and they have that year gap between Arc 3 and Arc 4. I think it's BBY2 and Arc 3. And
BBY2 to BBY1, yeah.
And so like that obviously has to happen. I just some fine tuning I think could have made that moment work better, where I was like, hey, like maybe K2SO is like that robot that remembers him from Space Miami or something like that. I don't know. Something. I don't know. Look,
I've never heard it referred to as Space Miami, and that's so perfect.
I got to give Ryan Airy from Screen Crush that one. I always watch the like little breakdowns he does.
Yeah, he's great.
I missed something, and he calls it Space Miami, because that's essentially what it is. In season 1. So I just need a little tweak there. I'm grateful we didn't see Chopper in this at all. Because if I had seen Chopper, I think I would have crashed out because it would have felt like the ultimate fan service thing.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that like for me, the K2SO thing in particular, like I think if it had been the same droid, I think that would have been one of those things where not everything needs to be so connected, right? Like it's fine for me that he's the same series of droid, not that he's the same droid exactly. You know, we have an idea what that droid is capable of. We don't need it to be the same droid.
So let's get to Mon Mothma because she's a big part of Andor season 2. I think she's like 2 of the 4 arcs are pretty much devoted to her for a good portion. And we talked about
she's basically the secondary protagonist of the show, really.
Like, yeah. So how did you feel about her arc in season 2 compared to like the other times we've seen her? You know, we talked about Rebels. She's in that, and this time she gets to do that full speech from Rebels where she's publicly denouncing the Emperor. What thoughts do you have on Mon Mothma?
I thought that she and Genevieve O'Reilly was a particularly great part of the show. She has several of my favorite moments from the show, in particular the breakdown at the end of episode 3, the speech and subsequent escape in episode 9, I believe it is. Genevieve O'Reilly is a very underrated actor, at least here. Like I think she's big deal famous in Australia and I think in the UK. Most of the stuff I've seen her in has been from Australia and the UK, other than this. But I really love that it gave weight and depth to her character. Like prior to Andor at all, like she's really just like one scene in Return of the Jedi, scenes in Rogue One. She has a couple of scenes in like Rebels and Clone Wars, but this is the one that really shows her progression from, aristocrat to rebel leader. And I love the way that is portrayed. I love the way she portrays it as well, especially in the first arc of this season, her being trapped by between her wealth and status and just the compromises she has to make. She's in a prison of her own making, and it's really it's a broken record at this point. It's really well written. It's really well performed, and I loved her. I think she's actually maybe the most interesting character in the whole second season.
Yeah, I think so too. I loved that we actually got to go to Chandrila this season and see how like the ritual basically, with all these like circle ceremonies and things like that, and show just how powerless she is against Skolden and his thugs, and to showcasing, okay, she's probably the most powerful person in the galaxy at the end of this show. She has an entire army behind her now. So just
But also-
seeing that upswing was just, and all the little nuances that comes with it. Like she'll never see her family again.
Yeah.
But she's got a
Really-
new one in the Rebel Alliance. So
When she's
I
there with her cousin, and it just really highlights that, like, you know, and I'm going to preface this by saying that I'm a pretty radically left-wing person at this point, but like it does highlight that everyone involved pays a price.
Hmm.
You know, that like doing the right thing and doing the hard thing are the same thing.
Yeah.
And that although people at the bottom, like, you know, Andor, Bix, Luthen have perhaps given up a lot, that she has not given up nothing. She has paid a price for her idealism and for doing the right thing. And I think it's important that we do realize that people at every level do have that price to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like her, you know, especially in the third arc when she publicly denounces the Emperor, and then she has a few moments, like the whole rest of that episode is basically her fall from innocence, right? Like as she realizes the true extent of what's going on, as Cassian ferries her out of the Senate, is pretty great. Just the body language in that whole scene of her realizing how dire the situation actually is, and watching people die to help her escape is powerful. And, yeah, she's so great. I'm so glad we got a full picture of who Mon Mothma is now.
Yeah. And also, internet, can we stop making memes out of Mon Mothma from that episode, please? Like,
or just stop like misinterpreting it horribly. Yeah, I've had a lot of
scene
online
where
discussions
she's like
about that.
exiting Coruscant and holding on to the car. I'm like, come on, guys. But continuing with, I guess we'll continue with Coruscant-based characters. Let's talk about Luthen. What are your thoughts on his arc? You know, capture, ultimate fate, and how Clea kind of plays a role in that.
So great. Stellan Skarsgård is one of our currently greatest working character actors, and he brings intensity to every moment. I think his ultimate fate is pretty much the only thing that could have happened. I think it would feel like a cop-out if he hadn't been killed or hadn't died. And I think that the flashback episode in particular, which is number 10, if memory serves, really goes back to, if you listen to his speech, the big famous speech he gives in season 1, he talks about he wakes up every day knowing he's damned for what he does and for what he's done. And then when you realize in the flashback that Clea is his adopted daughter because he participated in the massacre of her family, like that's what he's damned for, right? No matter what he does, he'll never make up for that. And everything he does is effectively trying to make up for that to her. Like, not just because like it's the right thing and he realizes that he's been radicalized by what he was forced to do, but he's also doing it to make it up. And I think that's very incredibly powerful. And to be fair, I'm a big sucker for like father and child type situations in shows and movies, but their whole relationship really spoke to me, especially toward the end when you realize the full extent of it.
Yeah. And I think, it's pretty symbolic that he talks about in season 1 burning his life for a sunrise he knows he'll never see. To quite literally Clea doing that, except for this time with like bombs and train depots and stuff like that. Or what was it, vehicle? It was some kind of vehicle that she blew up to create the distraction so that she could kill him.
But then at the end, her witnessing the sunrise, at the end is very poetic. And speaks to his character again. Like, he's doing everything. He's doing it for the rebellion. He's doing it because right, but he's doing it so that she can escape, not so that he can. And I think that it's very powerful.
I know this podcast would be more interesting if I disagreed with you, but I agree with you. But I love Stellan Skarsgård. If I know we'll never get it, but if we ever got like an extended version of what his life was, I would be all for it. I need more Skarsgård, but I think it ended the way it should have. Especially that fade.
Just the only way it could have ended, and not felt like a cop out to me.
Although editors don't think I didn't notice that janky fade to black. You need to tweak your DaVinci Resolve settings, okay? I could see the stair stepping, okay? But jokes aside, it was a really well done thing. Especially, I didn't think we were going to get a flashback episode with Clea. I thought they were just going to say, "Yeah, we're not going to explain it. We're just going to have it inferred like so many other plot threads that they talk about in this season." But yeah, loved it. And then I guess moving to the most toxic relationship in the galaxy besides Padme and Anakin Skywalker. Let's talk about Dedra Meero and Syril Karn, the two most evil persons and the people who I think kind of get a sympathy arc in this a little bit, which I was surprised to see.
Oh, I don't think it's sympathy. I think they both get exactly what they signed up for. Yeah, so, I mean, we're in spoiler territory, so I don't think it's a secret that it's Dedra's industriousness that ultimately leads to the Death Star plans getting out. I think that really highlights, and she ends up in prison for it. She ends up back in the same prison colony that Andor was in season 1, assumedly anyway. It really goes to show that, like, it actually goes back to the speech. What's his name? In season 1, talking about how, like, authority is brittle, but how fascism takes constant effort, and her industriousness, her entrepreneurialism, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, her want for more to excel in the system is ultimately what brings her down, right? Like, it's so brittle that it can't handle a passionate person within their ranks, because she's an evil person, don't get me wrong, but she's passionate about her cause and about achieving upward mobility and being rewarded and recognized for being good at her job. But fascism, it doesn't need or want that. Fascism needs cogs and machines doing their job. And the second someone isn't that, it disrupts the machine. And she's a perfect example of that, and how dedicating your life to something like that is just a mistake. And she gets exactly what she deserves. I think that if her story had ended any other way, it also would have felt like a cop-out. And I think that Syril is the exact other side of that coin, in that, like, they're both indoctrinated. Dedra grew up in it. She came from an Imperial orphanage. And Syril is just a citizen who wants to excel in the system, and a system that doesn't want people to excel. Again, it needs cogs and machines. And he becomes so obsessed with the person who disrupted his place in the machine that when he finally gets to confront that person, the person doesn't even know who he is, because he's so indoctrinated and so focused on it, to his own detriment. So he's trying so hard to do well that he tries in the wrong ways, like, it's a very fascinating look at two very different but very similar ways that fascism indoctrinates and controls people. And I think that they're both extremely well performed. I love that there's a scene when Dedra and Syril's mother are, like, negotiating over visiting rights in the second arc. And apparently there's a scene where he, like, goes and just lies on the bed, and apparently that was an improv. So perfect. Because he's like a textbook, like, sad boy who's been drawn into something greater than him that he doesn't fully understand. I think him in particular, I think there's probably a lot of people, not to single out your country, but a lot of people in the States on the right wing right now going, is this about me? Is this what is happening right now? And I hope it resonates in the way that it's supposed to. To be fair, there's probably lots of those people in Canada too. We have our own right-wing Looney Tunes leader, and I hope that some people have watched the show and been like, oh, right, maybe this is a mistake.
And what's funny about it coming out right now is it's to get political for a second, I think it would have hit a lot less if I was dealing with Kamala as president. You know what I mean?
I mean, it couldn't be better timed. And, like, they wrote this ages ago, but it couldn't be better timed. Like, it couldn't be better circumstances for being pointedly political, for sure.
Like, Dedra literally, it was accidentally invited to the Signal group chat.
Yeah. It's like, if Kamala Harris had won your election, then this would be, a cautionary tale about what might have been about. But now it's like a stern warning about what you're probably going through.
1,000%.
Yeah, it's a very interesting shift, and it would have been important either way. Like if this in a different timeline, we're talking about this about like, if the election had gone a different, would have been we'd be saying exactly the opposite thing. That this is just a cautionary tale, but now it's a stern warning. And I would rather be in that other timeline, to be totally clear. But here we are, and we have probably one of the most important like political works of the year. So certainly so far, but probably of the year. In terms of like what it's saying and when it's saying it and to whom.
Yeah, I'll just echo your stuff about Dedra and Syril. I felt a little bad when Andor said he didn't even know who he was, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, he doesn't know who you are. It's been 4 years since you've seen each other. Like he's been on like building the Rebel Alliance. Like
and also, like, had they even interacted to that point? Like, I haven't rewatched season 1, but I don't think they've even interacted before then, right? Like, I think that Syril's obsessed because, like, their interaction was that Andor disrupted his plans and humiliated him. But Andor doesn't know that. He just knows that he, like, killed a bunch of guards and got away, right? It's, again, it's a really interesting portrait of obsession.
Yeah, so they've met twice prior to and they also meet in season 2 before he gets killed, but they just turn opposite ways quite literally on a staircase.
Right.
But the first time he kills the guard guy on Morlana 1, which sets the whole thing with Syril into motion. And then they meet again on Ferrix, but crucial point, Cassian doesn't turn around to see who's holding a gun to his head and never really learns who held a gun to his head because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just,
so good. So well written. So well written. Again, broken record, but so well written.
Yeah. So well written. And if you have a finger pointing on your head, you might as well go the way of Partagaz at that point.
Yeah, I mean, Partagaz in particular, it's a great... Every character with power in the Empire styles themselves as the most powerful person in the room, right? So when Dedra is in a room with someone, she's cosplaying as the most powerful. But then as soon as she's in a room with Partagaz, she defers to him. He overrules her. He guides her. He's as close to like a mentor that she'll ever have. And he presents himself as like an authority, as like an important figure in the Empire. And then as soon as Krennic is in the room, he's no longer important. He's brushed aside. When he's called to the Emperor, he kills himself rather than go. And it's the same thing with Krennic. Krennic is overriding everyone in this show. Krennic wears an ornate version of the Imperial uniform, complete with a glorious space cape, which we should definitely have more of in the world.
More space cape.
But also, like, it's non-regulation. He's styling himself to be more powerful. And then as soon as he's in the room with Moff Tarkin in Rogue One, his career is undone with a sentence. It all goes back to this machine of fascism, and it does not reward people who stand out. It needs cogs. It needs cogs in a well-oiled machine. It does not need people who are trying to be more. It's just gonna chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah, and I love that Partagaz just is like, save your what does he say? Like, save your propaganda for the Emperor. I was like, yeah, I love that. I love that moment where it's like where he's just like, cut through the bullshit, just cut through the bullshit. Just talk to me like we're two people.
I mean, I love Anton Lesser. He's a great actor. I think one of my favorite line reads in the whole season is at one point he's giving an assignment to someone who's very excited. He's like, it's just an assignment. Calibrate your emotions.
Somebody made an edit of that scene where when it says calibrate your enthusiasm, the curb your enthusiasm theme starts playing.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Yeah. It's he's a great character. But also again, like, gets exactly what he deserves because that's what fascism is going to give you.
So let's talk about the ending. What did you like? What did you dislike?
I thought the ending was as close to perfect as it could be. I like that it led directly into Rogue One. I love that Tony Gilroy said years ago that the show was going to end with Cassian flying to the Ring of Kafrene. And that's exactly where it ended. I think that all the characters are in the right place. I think that, it emphasizes that community is what's going to win, like all the people on the Imperial side are alone, dead or alone. and all the people on the rebel side are together with people, and it really highlights that that is what is going to win. To use the phrase from The Last Jedi, like the rebellion wins by saving what it loves, not by destroying what they hate. And the ending of Rogue One is an illustration of that, I feel. And I again, like, there's a few things about it that kind of now bug me more in Rogue One than they did before, but a lot of things in Rogue One work a lot better now, I think, as a result of Andor existing. Like, it retroactively makes Rogue One a better movie.
Yeah. Because in Rogue One, like, I watched it directly after, at your serialized review recommendation, watching Rogue One right after, and it connects very well. The only problem I have with it is I think it ties too neat of a bow, for one, and then B, I think the montage I could have done with that.
I think the montage was important to show where everyone is. Like, we wouldn't have known where Dedra is without the montage. We wouldn't have known a few other things. So I get it. Like, I do think that the last episode does fall, of all the episodes of the show, it is the one that falls most into the we are a prequel and have to exist as such trap. But not in a deal-breaking way for me. Like, that's a very minor nitpick for me.
Yeah, like Bix supposedly having a kid, and I'm like, okay, now I've got to do the mental gymnastics of whether or not I should have whether or not this is, I don't know, do I need to care about this kid, or is it just, hey, Bix and Cassian had a kid and that kid gets to see the sunrise? B2,
that's all you need. That's all you need right there. Like, Bix left because she knew that if he didn't, Andor wouldn't commit, and Andor committing gives a future to their kid, to their child. And that is the important thing. And I think she, as much as she probably would have preferred for her child to have a father and to spend the rest of her life with Andor, she also knew that he needed to commit to the cause in order for their child, that she clearly knew about, to have a future. So I think just knowing that they have a child and there is a future for that child is the important part of that.
Obviously, yeah, I agree. And then B2, like, I feel it's almost cruel to show B2 in that moment, because B2 will now spend his entire life looking for Cassian, unless they wiped his memory.
I'm sure they just told him in the same way they had to tell him about Marva, right? Like, I'm sure that, like, B2 is a wonderful little puppy dog character. So, like, living on a farm with people who love him is the best ending he could have hoped for. And, it's sad that he never got reunited with Cassian, and he was a standout character in season 1. But again, I think that everyone ended up in the right place. And I do think the show is smart enough and emotionally mature enough for us to infer that they told him. They had to have told him, right? They wouldn't just let him think Cassian was alive. They would have to treat him like the 8-year-old that he is.
Maybe I've just been spoiled about Disney Plus series explicitly spelling it out for me. So maybe that's just all it is.
Maybe, but I think the great strength of the show is that it leads us to these conversations. It leads us to these discussions. It leads us to having to make these inferences on our own. I think one of the weaknesses of a lot of the Disney Plus projects from Star Wars and Marvel is they do spell too much out. They do leave too much. They don't leave enough to our imagination. They don't leave enough for us to infer and discover on our own. And I'm really glad that this one does not fall into that situation.
Let me pick your brain about one last thing, and we'll do the outro, I promise. What do you think happened to Bix's, not Bix's sister, Cassian's sister?
From the first season, you mean?
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't matter as much as we think it does.
Okay.
Like, it'd be nice, again, and like the Disney shows, these shows have been very explicit about what happens to whom. But what matters about Cassian's sister is that they're separated and it affected him, right? Like, when you really boil it down,
Sure.
It affected him. It affected the way he approaches relationships and the world. And those are the important point. Right? Like, it's a lesser show would have had her show up somehow.
Yeah. Maybe.
I think that it's important that these things be. I think that great shows leave us to talk about these things and give us everything we need, but nothing we don't. The show has given us everything we need about Cassian's sister, which is that they are separated, and he is at least a little bit broken because of it. Not broken, but it's something he needed to heal from. Something that affected his interpersonal dynamics, and that's all we really need from it. Right. It would be nice to have more, perhaps, and I'm sure that someone will write a show that chronicles something about her at some point. But I think this show would be lesser than if it had done anything more.
I guess it just makes me mad because they go back to a dream Cassian has, and it's like, okay, you're clearly teeing up something, and then it's like, okay, he's just watering his plants and leaves to go to the Ring of Caffeine.
I mean, I think, again, it's just him. He's just remembering, right? Like, he's remembering everything that has happened to him. I think that might actually be one of the more on-the-nose points in that, like, I don't know if you've watched Walk Hard, but the very beginning of that movie, like, it's a concert's about to start, and they're trying to find Dewey Cox, and his drummer is like, Dewey Cox has to think about his entire life before he plays. And, like, that is kind of what this moment is in Andor, just not funny. He's just, remembering the circumstances that brought him where he is. In that moment is a moment where he's like, he's made choices to be fully committed, and he's remembering what led him to those choices. And his sister was an important person when he was younger, and has led to influenced many of his decisions and character moments. And I think it's appropriate that he would remember that in that moment. But that's all we need. Again, it's beautiful economy of storytelling. That's the only thing we need from it, and that's all it gives us. And anything more would have made the show less than, I feel.
Yeah, we don't need Cassian's sister a Star Wars story.
No, not at all. We also don't need. I think it'll be a mistake for them to do Cassian's child a Star Wars story too. I think that that child remaining a symbol of hope is more important and smarter than trying to tell that story.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I did find out where Dedra went. She did not go to the same prison as Cassian, but like the woman version of it is what Tony Gilroy said.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean,
although,
same uniforms. If it's just like segregated, then yeah, that's fine. So the important thing there, again, like, they don't explicitly say where she is in the show, and the important thing is that by seeing her, in that uniform and in that bed space, is that her circumstances are exactly the same.
Yeah.
She's now slave labor for life, just grist for the Imperial mill, as it were. And again, exactly what her character signed up for and deserves.
Yeah. And I think that's a pretty good place to leave it off. The Andor Season 2 discussion. So, now that you've listened to our discussion on Andor Season 2, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show in the comments below on Spotify, because apparently that's the thing you can do now. On social media at Austin B Media, my Discord, or in my Patreon community chat. And speaking of Patreon, if you'd like early access to the next episode and more, head on over to patreon.com/AustinBmedia. For example, $3 a month gets you 48 early access to podcasts like this one, interviews, reviews, patron-only posts, monthly editorial calendars, and way too many things to list. And then at the $10 tier, the Wallace Warriors tier, you also receive access to the monthly behind the curtain posts, uncut podcast episodes like this one, exclusive podcast episodes. I'm going to be doing one on The Last of Us Season 2 next week, and access to a new monthly film club, and something I'm doing right now to celebrate the update Patreon has made to their iOS app. Is I'm running a special promotion from now until May 31st, where you can get 30% off your first month or year of your membership using the code AppleTax at checkout on patreon.com/AustinBmedia. But before we head out, if you've enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, leave a rating, and review it on your favorite podcast app. Matthew, thank you for joining me on this podcast today. Where can people follow your work?
Well, first of all, it's been a pleasure to be here again. Great discussion. Glad I was able to do it with you. As I said before, I write freelance. So the two easiest ways to find me, there's three ways to find me would be my homepage, my portfolio page, which is stretched.ca. The next place would be my Patreon, which is patreon.com/MC. There's several tiers of membership, but right now everything is still free. Like you can just follow for free and that's fine. But if you want to contribute as little as $2, I will love you forever. And if you want to follow me, I post pretty regularly on social media. I'm on Threads and Instagram at SmatthewAF, and I am on Blue Sky at smatthew.bsky.social. Those are the best ways to find me.
Yeah, I'm mainly on Blue Sky right now because that seems to be the place where the engagement spam is not living. So,
I mean, I don't. The state of social media is a different podcast, so let's just not get into it.
Yeah, that's a whole 3-hour podcast. In fact, I talked about it in somewhere else. But I have been your host, Austin Belzer, and until next time.